The digital clock on Rob Mitchell's nightstand read 4:47 a.m. when his eyes opened. No alarm, no external sound, just the internal clock that had governed his life for 30 years as a CPA. Outside the bedroom window of their Highlands Ranch home, Colorado's pre-dawn darkness pressed against the glass like black velvet. Beside him, Catherine slept peacefully, her breathing steady and rhythmic. Her auburn hair, now threaded with silver, fanned across the pillow. 26 years of waking up next to this woman, and Rob still felt a flutter of gratitude every morning. Or at least, he used to. Lately, something had shifted. Nothing he could name, nothing concrete enough to mention. Just a subtle distance, like a photograph slowly going out of focus. Kate had always been independent. It was one of the things he'd loved about her. But over the past few months, that independence had calcified into something else. Something that felt less like strength and more like absence. Rob slid out of bed carefully, not wanting to disturb her. Their bedroom was a masterpiece of understated elegance. Cream walls, dark wood furniture, framed photographs documenting 26 years of marriage. Rob and Kate on their wedding day, impossibly young. The kids as babies. Family vacations to Yellowstone, Sedona, the Grand Canyon. A life well lived, captured in silver frames, or so he'd thought. He padded downstairs in his slippers, craving that first cup of coffee before the wedding chaos began. 3 days. In 3 days, their daughter Sarah would marry Tyler Hayes, and their home would transform into command central for 200 guests. The backyard was already taking shape. White chairs stacked under tarps, the arch for the ceremony wrapped in protective plastic, waiting for the florist's magic touch. Tyler. Rob paused on the stairs, one hand on the banister. He'd tried to like the guy, really tried. Tyler was successful, charming, said all the right things. A lawyer at Morrison & Associates, one of Denver's most prestigious estate planning firms. Handsome in that polished way that came from expensive haircuts and tailored suits. Sarah was head over heels, radiating happiness every time Tyler's name came up. But something nagged at Rob. The way Tyler's smile never quite reached his eyes. How he always seemed to be performing, even in casual moments. The excessive cologne that announced his presence before he entered a room. Small things, petty things maybe. The kind of things an overprotective father might fixate on because his little girl was getting married. Rob shook his head, continuing down the stairs. He was being ridiculous. Sarah was 28 years old, a successful architect with her own firm. She didn't need her father's approval to get married. And yet, the kitchen was dark, but a sliver of light glowed from beneath the door to the adjacent sitting room. Rob frowned. It was barely 5 in the morning. Who else was up? As he moved closer, he heard voices, soft, intimate murmurs punctuated by quiet laughter. Sarah must have come over early, he thought, probably too excited to sleep. She and Kate had been planning this wedding for months, poring over flower arrangements and seating charts like generals plotting a campaign. Rob reached for the door handle, ready to join them, maybe tease his daughter about her pre-wedding jitters. But something made him pause. Some instinct, some subtle wrongness in the quality of those voices. He pushed the door open a crack instead. The sitting room was bathed in the warm glow of a single lamp. And there, standing by the window, were 2 figures, not Sarah and Kate. Kate and Tyler. They stood close together, closer than casual acquaintances, closer than future mother-in-law and son-in-law. Tyler's hand was raised to Kate's face, his fingers brushing her cheek with unmistakable tenderness. Kate's eyes were closed, her lips curved in a smile Rob hadn't seen directed at him in years. "Catherine," Tyler's voice was low, rough with emotion. "We can't keep doing this." "I know." Kate opened her eyes, and even from the doorway Rob could see the heat in her gaze. "But I can't stop either." "After the wedding," Tyler said, his hand sliding down to her neck, his thumb tracing her jaw. "We need to figure this out. We can't keep sneaking around." "After the wedding," Kate agreed, leaning into his touch. "Things will be different. We'll find a way." Tyler leaned in, his forehead touching hers, their breath mingling in the space between them. "I should hate myself for this. for what we're doing to Sarah, to Rob, but God help me, Catherine, I don't. Don't, Kate whispered. Don't think about them right now. Just be here with me. Rob's hand tightened on the doorframe, his knuckles white. His heart hammered against his ribs so hard he was certain they could hear it. But they were lost in each other, completely unaware of the witness to their betrayal. Every instinct screamed at him to burst through that door, to confront them, to demand answers. But something deeper held him back, some survival instinct that said, not yet, not without proof, not without understanding the full scope of this nightmare. Rob backed away as quietly as he'd come, each step deliberate and soundless. His hands shook. His breath came in short, painful gasps. The hallway tilted and swayed like the deck of a ship in a storm. He made it to his home office before the full impact hit him. Rob sank into his leather desk chair, the same chair where he'd built his accounting firm from the ground up, where he'd worked late nights to provide for his family, where he'd felt safe and successful and proud. All of it, every achievement, every milestone, every moment of happiness suddenly felt like sand slipping through his fingers. His wife was having an affair with their daughter's fiancé, the man who was supposed to marry Sarah in 3 days. Rob's mind raced, cataloging evidence he'd been too blind to see. Kate's late book club meetings that started 4 months ago, the new lingerie she'd bought, claiming it made her feel confident, her sudden interest in working out, in getting her hair done more frequently, the way she'd started using a new messaging app on her phone, one Rob didn't recognize. And Tyler. God, Tyler. All those times he'd come over to visit Sarah but stayed for dinner, charming them with stories about the law firm, about his cases, about his plans for the future. The way Kate always made sure she looked her best on those evenings. How Tyler always seemed to know exactly how Kate liked her coffee. Rob had thought he was seeing a devoted future son-in-law making an effort with his in-laws, but he'd been watching a man seduce his wife in plain sight. The office door creaked open. Rob's head snapped up, adrenaline flooding his system. But it was just the cat, Whiskers, padding in for her morning routine. She wound around his legs, purring, oblivious to the fact that her owner's world had just imploded. Rob checked his watch. 5:17 a.m. In a few hours, Kate would wake up, shower, and come downstairs. She'd kiss him on the cheek the way she did every morning. A gesture he'd treasured, never realizing it might be nothing more than muscle memory. Sarah would probably show up around 9, bubbling with excitement about final wedding preparations. Tyler would arrive later, all smiles and firm handshakes, playing the role of perfect groom. And Rob would have to look at all of them, knowing what he knew, and somehow keep his family from falling apart. But first, he needed to warn Sarah. His daughter deserved to know what kind of man she was about to marry, even if she hated him for it. The morning passed in a blur of forced normalcy that nearly broke Rob's sanity. Kate came downstairs at 7, fresh from the shower, wearing yoga pants and a casual sweater. She kissed his cheek, the same cheek Tyler had touched hours earlier in that darkened sitting room. "Morning, honey," she said brightly, pouring herself coffee. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," Rob managed, his voice surprisingly steady. "Wedding stress, I guess." Kate laughed, the sound light and carefree. "We'll get used to it. The next 3 days are going to be insane." She glanced at her phone, scrolling through messages. "I have a meeting this afternoon with Morrison and Associates. They want me to speak at their estate planning seminar next month." Rob's blood went cold. Morrison and Associates, Tyler's firm. Will Tyler be there? The question came out sharper than he'd intended. Kate's eyes flickered up from her phone, something unreadable crossing her face. "Oh, I don't know. It's with the senior partners. Vincent Morrison specifically requested me." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious." Rob forced himself to take a sip of coffee, to look casual. "You've been spending a lot of time with that firm lately." "They're the best in Denver," Kate said, her tone just slightly defensive. "And my corporate law background makes me valuable for their seminars. It's good money, Rob. I thought you'd be happy about that." She left the kitchen before he could respond, taking her coffee upstairs. Through the window, Rob watched her white Lexus pull out of the driveway at 12:47 p.m., right on schedule for her meeting. At 1:15 p.m., Rob was sitting in his car outside Sarah's architecture studio in Cherry Creek. The brick building housed 3 small firms, and Sarah's occupied the second floor. Bright, modern, filled with drafting tables and the creative chaos of young designers making their mark. He found her at her desk, bent over blueprints with that intense focus she'd inherited from him. When she was deep in work, the rest of the world disappeared. It was one of the things that made her such a talented architect. "Hey, Dad." Sarah looked up, surprised but pleased. "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at home dealing with wedding stuff?" "I wanted to talk to you." Rob pulled up a chair, suddenly uncertain how to begin. "How are you feeling? Any last-minute cold feet?" Sarah laughed, rolling up the blueprints. "Cold feet? Dad, I'm marrying the man of my dreams in 3 days. I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Her eyes were shining, face flushed with happiness. "Tyler is perfect, everything I've ever wanted." The words hit Rob like a physical blow. She had no idea, no clue that her perfect fiancé was betraying her in the most devastating way possible. "Sarah," Rob began carefully, "how well do you really know Tyler?" Her smile faltered slightly. "What do you mean? We've been together for 2 years. I know everything about him." "Has he ever—" Rob struggled to find the right words that wouldn't sound insane. "Has he ever given you reason to doubt his faithfulness?" Sarah set down her coffee cup slowly, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. "Dad, what's this about?" "I saw something this morning." Rob leaned forward, keeping his voice low. "Tyler was at our house early, with your mother. They were very close." "Close?" Sarah's eyebrows drew together. "Close how?" "Intimate. Too intimate for a future son-in-law and mother-in-law." For a moment, Sarah just stared at him. Then understanding dawned in her eyes, followed immediately by disbelief and anger. "Are you serious right now? Are you seriously implying that Tyler and Mom—" "I'm not implying anything," Rob said quickly. "I'm telling you what I saw." "No." Sarah stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "No, you're telling me something crazy, something disgusting. Mom has been mentoring Tyler on corporate law. You know that. They have a professional relationship." "It didn't look professional, Sarah." "What did it look like then?" Her voice rose, drawing glances from other designers in the studio. "Tell me exactly what you think you saw." Rob hesitated, and that hesitation was his mistake. Because he hadn't seen them kiss, hadn't caught them in bed. He'd seen intimate touches, heard loaded conversations, circumstantial evidence that wouldn't hold up in the court of a daughter's loyalty. "They were standing very close," he said finally, "touching each other's faces. Tyler said they couldn't keep doing this, whatever this is. He said they needed to figure things out after the wedding." Sarah's face had gone from flushed to pale to flushed again, but this time with fury. "So you're telling me that my fiancé, the man I'm marrying in 3 days, is having an affair with my mother? Based on— What? A conversation you overheard? Standing too close?" "Sarah, I know it sounds insane." She grabbed her phone, her hands shaking. "Actually, you know what? Mom warned me this might happen." Rob felt ice settle in his stomach. "What?" "Last week, Mom said you'd been stressed lately, that you might have some kind of breakdown when the wedding got close because you're having trouble letting me go." Sarah's eyes were bright with angry tears. "Empty nest syndrome," she called it. "I told her she was wrong, that you'd be happy for me, but here you are, making up sick fantasies about my fiancé and my mother." "I'm not making this up," Rob said desperately. "Sarah, please, just listen." "No, you listen." Sarah pointed at the door. "I have been planning this wedding for 6 months. I have found the man I want to spend my life with, and I will not let you sabotage it because you can't deal with the fact that I'm not your little girl anymore. That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" Sarah demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're so uncomfortable with me getting married that you're willing to accuse 2 people you supposedly love of something disgusting." "I saw them, Sarah." You saw what you wanted to see." She grabbed her jacket, shoving her arms through the sleeves. "I'm going to talk to Tyler right now. I'm going to tell him what you said, and then I'm going to call Mom and apologize for my father being out of his mind." "Sarah, please, if you can't be happy for me," Sarah said, her voice shaking but firm, "then maybe you shouldn't come to my wedding at all." The words hung in the air between them like a death sentence. Rob opened his mouth, but nothing came out. What could he say? How could he prove something he'd only glimpsed, something that had happened in shadows and whispers? Sarah grabbed her purse and walked out, leaving Rob sitting alone in her studio surrounded by blueprints of homes she'd designed for other families. Families that probably weren't falling apart at the seams. Rob sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, feeling more alone than he'd ever felt in his life. By 9 p.m., Rob was back in his home office, the door closed, a half-empty glass of whiskey on the desk beside him. The house was quiet. Kate had returned from her meeting around 6, breezing through the kitchen with shopping bags and cheerful chatter about the seminar. Sarah hadn't called. Tyler hadn't shown up to confront him. Maybe Sarah hadn't told them after all. Or maybe they were so confident in their lies that they didn't feel the need to respond. Rob stared at the family photos on his desk, seeing them through new eyes. Every smile suddenly looked fake, every happy memory tainted by the possibility that it had all been a performance. 26 years of marriage, and he didn't know his wife at all. A soft knock on the door interrupted his spiraling thoughts. "Come in," Rob said, expecting Kate coming to check on him or maybe lecture him about upsetting Sarah. But it was Dan who stepped into the office, closing the door quietly behind him. At 29, Rob's adopted son had grown into a thoughtful, analytical man. He worked as a data analyst for a tech company, spending his days finding patterns in chaos. Right now, those perceptive dark eyes were studying Rob with concern. "Sarah called me," Dan said without preamble. "She's really upset." Rob sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know. I messed up." "Did you?" Dan pulled up a chair, settling in with the patient calm he'd had even as a child. "Tell me what happened." "Dan, I don't want to drag you into this." "Dad." The single word, spoken firmly but kindly, stopped Rob's protest. "You raised me. You were there for every scraped knee, every bad grade, every disappointment. You don't get to protect me now. Tell me what's going on." So Rob did. He told Dan about the early morning discovery, about Kate and Tyler in the sitting room, about the intimate touches and loaded words, about trying to warn Sarah and being rejected, about feeling completely isolated in his own family. When he finished, Dan was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You don't believe me either," Rob said tiredly. "That's okay. I'm starting to doubt my own sanity." "No," Dan said slowly. "That's not it. I believe you, Dad, because I've been seeing things too." Rob's head snapped up. "What?" Dan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "For about 3 months now, little things that didn't make sense. I work from home most days, remember? So I'm around a lot when you and Sarah aren't." "What kind of things?" "Tyler's car in the driveway when Sarah's out of town on business trips. Mom saying she's going to the gym, but I checked the location on her car's GPS, the family tracking app, and she's at the Four Seasons downtown." Dan pulled out his phone, scrolling through notes. "I started keeping a log about 6 weeks ago. Dates, times, locations. I told myself I was being paranoid, that there had to be innocent explanations." Rob felt something loosen in his chest, a knot of isolation that had been tightening all day. "You kept records?" "I'm a data analyst, Dad. It's what I do." Dan showed him the phone screen, filled with detailed entries. Tuesday and Friday afternoons, like clockwork. Mom leaves the house at 2 p.m. Tyler's Lexus shows up in the parking garage at the JW Marriott at 2:45 p.m. Mom's car shows up at 2:50 p.m. They leave separately about 2 hours later. "Why didn't you tell me?" Dan's expression tightened. "Because I know how it feels to have your world turned upside down by family secrets. And I didn't want to do that to you without being absolutely certain." He paused. But if you saw something too, Dad, we can't ignore this anymore. Sarah won't listen to me. Sarah's in love. She sees what she wants to see. Dan set his phone down. But we need to be systematic about this. We need proof that even she can't deny. How do we get that? We start with what we know. Dan stood up, moving to Rob's whiteboard where he sometimes sketched out accounting problems. He picked up a marker and started writing. Tyler Hayes, junior associate at Morrison & Associates, 2 years out of law school. Sarah says they met at a charity gala. He makes about $75,000 a year, Rob added, his accounting brain engaging despite his emotional turmoil. Maybe 80 with bonuses. Right, but look at his spending. Dan wrote more notes. The Cartier necklace he gave Mom for her birthday. I saw it, Sarah posted photos. That's at least $8,000 retail. The Rolex he wears, the Armani suits, the lunches at expensive restaurants. Rob sat up straighter. Where's he getting the money? Exactly what I've been wondering. Dan turned back to face him. Dad, I've been researching Morrison & Associates. They've had complaints filed with the Colorado Bar Association. Something about billing irregularities and missing trust funds. Trust funds. Rob's mind started connecting dots, the CPA in him seeing patterns in financial behavior. Law firms hold client money, settlements, estates, escrow accounts. If someone had access and was willing to skim, they could fund an expensive lifestyle, Dan finished. Small amounts from multiple accounts. Nothing big enough to trigger immediate attention. But eventually someone notices. Rob stood up, energy returning for the first time all day. Dan, if Tyler's been embezzling, we need to prove that too. Dan's expression was grim but determined. We have 3 days, Dad. 3 days to gather enough evidence to stop this wedding and save Sarah from making the biggest mistake of her life. Rob looked at his son, his adopted son, the 3-year-old boy they'd welcomed into their home 26 years ago, and felt a surge of gratitude so powerful it nearly brought him to his knees. Why are you doing this? Rob asked quietly. Why are you helping me? She's your mother too. Dan met his eyes steadily. Because you're my father. Not by blood maybe, but in every way that actually matters. You taught me right from wrong, Dad. You taught me that integrity isn't just something you talk about. It's something you live even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He moved to the door, then turned back. Tomorrow morning, we start surveillance. We document everything. Financial records, locations, timeline. We build a case so airtight that even Sarah can't deny it. And if we're wrong, Rob had to ask, even though he knew they weren't. Then we'll be wrong together, Dan said simply. But Dad, I don't think we're wrong. After Dan left, Rob sat in the quiet office for a long time, looking at the family photos with new understanding. He'd spent 26 years building what he thought was a perfect life, a beautiful home, a successful career, a loving family. But maybe perfection had been the problem all along. Maybe he'd been so focused on maintaining the appearance of happiness that he'd missed the rot spreading underneath. 3 days until the wedding, 3 days to uncover the truth and save his daughter. Rob picked up his phone and started making notes, his accounting mind cataloging evidence the way he'd catalog financial discrepancies for a client. Because that's what this was, really, an audit of his life. And like any good audit, he was going to follow the money until he found where the fraud began. Outside his office window, the Colorado night stretched vast and star-filled above Highlands Ranch. The house that had always felt like a sanctuary now felt like a crime scene. But at least he wasn't alone anymore. At least someone believed him. That would have to be enough. Rob's home office looked like a war room by 6 a.m. Dan had arrived with 2 laptops, external monitors, and enough coffee to fuel a small army. The whiteboard was covered in notes, timelines, locations, financial figures, all converging on a single devastating truth. We need to be systematic, Dan said, pulling up multiple windows on his screens. 3 things: opportunity, means, and motive. Let's start with opportunity. He opened a shared calendar marked with red highlights. I've been tracking Mom's phone location for 6 weeks using our family app. Every Tuesday and Friday afternoon, she's at one of 3 hotels, JW Marriott, Four Seasons, or Brown Palace. Rob leaned closer, studying the pattern. Always between 2 and 5 p.m. When you're at work and Sarah's at her studio, Dan pulled up Tyler's Instagram. Now look at this. He geotags his lunch posts. Same hotels, same dates. The evidence was damning. Photo after photo of expensive meals, cocktails, city views, each timestamp matching Kate's location data within minutes. Communication patterns, Dan continued, pulling up phone records. Mom's been calling an unknown number 3 to 5 times daily for 4 months. Prepaid burner phone. But watch this. He overlaid Tyler's social media activity. Every time she calls, Tyler posts something within 30 minutes. Rob felt sick. The data told a story his heart didn't want to believe. I also accessed Tyler's cloud backup, Dan admitted. His password was Catherine Mitchell 2024. Took 4 tries. He opened a folder labeled Personal. Rob forced himself to look. Photos of Kate and Tyler at restaurants, holding hands across tables, in hotel lobbies, his hand on her back. In Tyler's car, faces close together, intimate and undeniable. 53 photos over 3 months, Dan said quietly. And text messages. They're careful, but the meaning is clear. One message from Kate. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. You make me feel alive again. Tyler's response. You are alive. Rob doesn't deserve you. Rob's hands clenched. 26 years of marriage reduced to digital evidence of betrayal. At 1:45 p.m., Rob sat in his Honda across from Morrison & Associates' downtown office. Dan occupied the passenger seat, telephoto camera ready. Friday afternoon, according to the pattern, they'd meet today. The October sky was crystalline and cold. Office workers hurried past in wool coats, oblivious to the surveillance operation in the nondescript sedan. There, Dan said. Tyler's silver BMW emerged from the parking garage at 2:03 p.m. Rob started the engine, following at a careful distance. 3 car lengths back, no sudden moves, document everything. Tyler drove to Cherry Creek, pulling into the JW Marriott's parking structure. Dan captured photos, the BMW entering, timestamp visible, license plate clear. Now we wait, Dan said. If the pattern holds, Mom arrives in 30 to 40 minutes. They did. Rob gripped the steering wheel, watching the entrance, each minute stretching like hours. His heart hammered against his ribs. At 2:37 p.m., Kate's white Lexus appeared. The abstract data suddenly became visceral reality. His wife, parking at a hotel to meet her lover. Kate stepped out wearing a red dress he'd never seen, elegant, provocative, designed to be noticed. Her hair was styled softer than usual, more romantic. She walked through the entrance with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where she was going. Dan's camera clicked rapidly. We should go in, Rob said, his voice tight. Confront them. No. Dan lowered the camera, compassionate but firm. We document, we don't engage. If we confront them now, they'll deny everything. Say it was business, make you look paranoid. We need them to come out together. We need proof of the timeline. Rob wanted to argue, but Dan was right, so they waited. 2 hours and 37 minutes, long enough for Rob to cycle through rage, grief, humiliation, and back to rage again, long enough for shadows to lengthen across the parking lot as the sun sank lower. When Kate and Tyler finally emerged, they maintained careful distance, walking several feet apart, body language deliberately casual. But Dan's telephoto lens captured what others might miss. Tyler's hand briefly touching Kate's back at the valet stand. Her leaning toward him as they spoke. The lingering look they exchanged before separating to their cars. 47 photos in 3 minutes, each one damning. Each one proof. They followed Kate home, maintaining distance. She arrived at 5:23 p.m., checking her appearance in the rearview mirror, refreshing lipstick, smoothing hair, preparing the mask she'd wear for her husband. Through the window, Rob watched her gather shopping bags from the trunk, props for the fictional errands she'd claim. Dad, Dan said quietly, we need to talk about what happens next. We show Sarah everything, Rob said. tonight. She'll have to believe us. And if she doesn't? Rob's jaw tightened. Then we go to the police about the embezzlement. Let them investigate Tyler. The affair comes out in the process. Dan's phone buzzed. He checked it, then made a strangled sound. What? Dan held up a text from Sarah. Dad told you his crazy theory, didn't he? I can't believe you're taking his side. You're supposed to be my brother. They're warning her, Dan said, putting her on the defensive. We're running out of time. Back in the office, Rob couldn't settle. Something nagged at him, something beyond the affair. He pulled up Tyler's financial records again, studying them with the focused intensity that had made him successful in forensic accounting. Jewelry, restaurants, hotels, all consistent with an affair. But underneath was another pattern. Dan, look at this. Rob highlighted a series of cash withdrawals. $500 every Friday for 16 weeks. Always from the same ATM near Morrison and Associates. Drug habit? Maybe, or Rob cross-referenced withdrawal dates with the Bar Association complaints he'd researched. Every complaint mentions money disappearing in increments of $500 to $2,000. He pulled up a calculator, running numbers. If Tyler's been skimming $500 a week for 16 weeks, plus occasional larger amounts, his fingers flew across the keys. We're looking at least $50,000, probably more. That's felony embezzlement, Dan said. Multiple felonies, wire fraud, theft from vulnerable clients. Some of these are estates of deceased people. Rob sat back, the implications settling over him. Tyler isn't just cheating on Sarah. He's a criminal facing serious prison time. He pulled up the Bar Association website, searching for recent updates. There it was, a notice dated 2 weeks ago. Morrison and Associates under investigation for client fund irregularities. Sources suggest discrepancies may total over $200,000. $200,000, Rob breathed. Enough to fund an expensive affair with hotel rooms, jewelry, and designer clothes. Dan leaned over his shoulder, reading. Look at this. Investigation focusing on junior associates with trust account access. Rob's accounting mind saw the pattern clearly now. Junior associates handling routine estate work, small withdrawals from multiple accounts, nothing large enough to trigger immediate audits. Victims who were elderly, deceased, or too overwhelmed by legal processes to notice discrepancies right away. It's textbook embezzlement, Rob said. And Tyler's been living beyond his means for months. The affair with Mom is expensive, but it's also his motive. He's trying to impress her, compete with me financially. Dad, Dan said slowly, if the Bar investigation is this far along, Morrison and Associates must be close to identifying him. Which means Tyler is desperate. Rob felt ice settle in his stomach. And desperate people do dangerous things. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. Mitchell, this is Vincent Morrison from Morrison and Associates. We should talk. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.? This is urgent. Rob arrived at Morrison and Associates at 7:55 a.m., taking in the prestigious office with new eyes. Marble lobby, expensive art, the trappings of old Denver money and legal prestige. Somewhere in this building, Tyler Hayes had been systematically stealing from the vulnerable. Vincent Morrison's assistant led Rob to a corner office overlooking the city. Morrison himself was in his 60s, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone who'd built his reputation on integrity. Mr. Mitchell? Morrison's handshake was firm. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. Rob settled into a leather chair, trying to appear casual. Your message said it was urgent. Yes, Morrison's expression was grave. You left a voicemail yesterday inquiring about estate planning services. You also mentioned concerns about trust account security given recent complaints. I did my research, Rob said carefully. I wanted to ensure my family's assets would be properly protected. Of course, Morrison steepled his fingers. Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to be frank with you. We are currently conducting an internal investigation into trust account irregularities. I cannot discuss specifics, but I can tell you that one of our junior associates is under scrutiny. Tyler Hayes, Rob said. Morrison's expression confirmed it. You know him. He's engaged to my daughter. The wedding is tomorrow. Morrison's face paled. I see. Mr. Mitchell, I think we need to have a very serious conversation. Rob returned home at noon, his meeting with Morrison having confirmed their worst suspicions. Tyler was under active investigation. The firm had evidence of at least 280 buzz in missing client funds. They were preparing to involve law enforcement. Dan was waiting in the office, but something was wrong. His face was pale, his hands shaking slightly as he closed his laptop. Dad, before we go any further, I need to tell you something. Dan's voice was barely steady. Something about why this matters so much to me. About Mom. About a lie she told 26 years ago. Rob's stomach dropped. Dan, I'm not your nephew. The words rushed out like he'd been holding them back for years. I never was. There was no car accident, no distant cousin named Rodriguez who died tragically. The world tilted. Rob gripped the desk, needing something solid. What are you talking about? Alex Rodriguez was real, Dad. He was a lawyer at Mom's firm, but there was no wife, no accident, just Mom, pregnant and terrified with a man who wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. Kate was pregnant, with you. Yes. Dan's eyes filled with tears. She was having an affair with Alex Rodriguez, got pregnant. He told her to handle it herself. He wanted no part of fatherhood. Mom panicked. She wasn't ready to be a mother, wasn't ready to tell you about the affair, so she created the orphaned nephew story. Rob felt like he was drowning. And I believed her. Took you in without question. Because you're a good man, Dan said fiercely. Because you don't interrogate the people you love. You just love them. You loved me from day one. How long have you known? Since I was 18. Found my real birth certificate looking for passport documents. Father, Alex Rodriguez. Mother, Catherine Louise Mitchell. No adoption papers, just proof that I was Mom's biological son. Dan wiped his eyes. I confronted her. She broke down, told me everything, begged me never to tell you. Said it would destroy our family. So you kept her secret. I was 18, Dad. Terrified of losing you, of you realizing I wasn't really yours. Dan's voice cracked. But you are my father, the man who raised me, who believed in me, who was there for everything that mattered. Biology doesn't change that. Rob stood slowly, crossed the room, and pulled Dan into a fierce embrace. You're my son. Nothing changes that. Not biology, not lies, not anything. They held each other, grieving for innocence lost, for the lies that had shaped them, for the mother and wife who'd betrayed them both. When they finally pulled apart, Dan's expression was resolute. There's a horrible irony here, isn't there? Mom's been lying about me since I was born. Now she's lying about Tyler. It's a pattern. 26 years of deception, Rob said quietly. Our entire marriage built on falsehood. And now she's helping Tyler lie to Sarah, history repeating itself. Rob looked at the evidence covering his desk, photos, financial records, timeline documentation, everything they'd need to expose the truth, everything that would destroy his daughter's wedding day. Tomorrow morning, we give Sarah one last chance. Yeah, Rob decided. We show her everything. If she still won't believe us, then we stand up at the wedding and object, Dan finished, in front of everyone. Public intervention, last resort. Dad, are you sure? This will destroy the family. Mom's reputation, your marriage, Sarah's relationship with both of you. The family is already destroyed, Rob said quietly. We're just the ones who are going to admit it. Sarah deserves the truth, even if she hates us for it. Dan nodded slowly. Then tomorrow, we save Sarah. Or we lose everything trying. Either way, Rob said, we do it together, father and son. Father and son, Dan agreed. Outside, the Colorado sun set over Highlands Ranch, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the truth would finally come out, whatever the cost. Rob's phone read 6:47 a.m., wedding day. He'd been awake all night, evidence folder beside him, rehearsing his words. He called Sarah. Dad? Her voice was guarded. It's not even 7. I need 30 minutes, please. Silence. Then, Starbucks on Colfax, 7:30. 15 minutes, that's it. At 7:28 a.m., Rob sat in a corner booth, manila folder on the table. Sarah arrived at 7:33, hair in rollers, face bare, exhausted. You look tired, Rob said. Tyler and I fought last night. He says you've been harassing him, stalking him, making up stories. Her eyes were red. Dad, what's happening to you? I'm trying to save you. Rob slid the folder across. Please, just look. Sarah opened it with shaking hands. The first photo showed Kate and Tyler holding hands at Mercantile Restaurant. Timestamp, October 17th, 2:47 p.m. Her breath caught. She flipped through more photos. Tyler's hand on Kate's back at the hotel entrance, their intimate conversations, faces close in his car, each time-stamped, geotagged. These could be fake, Sarah whispered. Dan has the metadata. Rob showed the credit card statements. Tyler makes $75,000 a year. Look at this spending. $8,000 at Cartier, $15,000 in hotels over 3 months. It's impossible on his salary. He showed the Bar Association complaints, Vincent Morrison's confirmation, the pattern of embezzlement. The last page, Rob said quietly. Sarah turned to the text messages. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. You make me feel alive again. Her hands trembled. Why would Mom do this? Sarah's voice broke. I love him. I thought he loved me. You can't marry him, Sarah. We need to postpone. I have 200 guests coming in 8 hours. Better embarrassed today than destroyed tomorrow. Sarah's phone rang. Mom calling. She knows I'm here. Sarah answered. Mom? Rob heard Kate's calm voice. Honey, where are you? We're waiting at the salon. I'm with Dad. He showed me photos. A pause. Oh, I was afraid this would happen. Can I come meet you both? I think we need to talk. Kate arrived in 9 minutes, immaculate in cream and silk. She slid in next to Sarah. I know what you think you saw, Kate said steadily, but you don't have the full story. Tyler's been blackmailing me. Sarah gasped. Rob froze. 6 months ago, Tyler discovered Dan's secret that he's my biological son, not my nephew. He threatened to tell Rob, destroy our family, unless I helped him. Kate's eyes filled with tears. The hotel meetings, the restaurants. He insisted I play along, act intimate, to avoid suspicion. He said if I refused, he'd ruin everything. Rob stared at his wife's performance. She was good. She'd always been good at reshaping reality. If he was blackmailing you, Rob said slowly, why didn't you come to me? Because I was ashamed. I lied to you 26 years ago. I couldn't bear for you to know. Kate turned to Sarah. Do you really think I'd risk my daughter's happiness for an affair? Or is Tyler a manipulative criminal using all of us? Sarah stood abruptly. I need to talk to Tyler, right now. I need his side. Sarah, no. It's my life, Dad. I get to decide who I believe. She grabbed her purse. I'm going to ask him directly, then I'll make my own decision. She left. Rob and Kate sat across from each other, 26 years reduced to this. You won't win, Kate said softly. Sarah wants her fairy tale. She'll choose Tyler. In 8 hours, I'm standing up at that wedding and telling everyone the truth, Rob said. Kate's smile was cold. Then you'll lose your daughter forever. Rob stood. Maybe, but at least I'll have tried to save her. At 3:30 p.m., Rob stood at his window. The backyard had transformed. White chairs, flower arch, string lights ready to twinkle. 200 guests arriving. Tyler greeting everyone, perfect in his tuxedo. Kate in her red dress, the gracious hostess, a fairy tale built on lies. Dan appeared. Sarah's locked in her room, won't talk to anyone. Did she confront Tyler? Yes, he denied everything, said you fabricated the evidence, that you're having a breakdown. Dan's jaw tightened. I think she wants to believe him. Rob turned from the window. Let me try one more time. He knocked on Sarah's door. Sweetheart, it's Dad. Go away. He entered anyway. Sarah sat in her wedding dress, veil on, makeup tear-stained, a princess in a nightmare. "What did Tyler say?" Rob asked. "That you're under stress, seeing things that aren't there, that the photos are fake." Her hands twisted. "Someone's lying to me, and I don't know who." "So what will you do?" Sarah stood. "I'm getting married. I'm walking down that aisle. Then I'll watch. I'll test him. I'll find the truth myself." "Sarah, trust me for once, Dad. I'm not a child." Rob couldn't stop her, not without destroying everything. "Whatever happens out there," he said quietly, "I'm doing it because I love you." He kissed her forehead and left. Dan was waiting. Rob nodded once. Plan B. At exactly 4:00 p.m., efficient William Barnes smiled at the assembled guests. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join Tyler Hayes and Sarah Mitchell in holy matrimony." His voice carried across the perfect setting. "If anyone present has reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace." Rob stood. The collective gasp was audible. Every head turned. Sarah went pale. Tyler's confidence cracked. "I object," Rob said clearly. "Dad, sit down," Sarah hissed. Rob connected his phone to the ceremony's speaker system. The first surveillance photo filled his screen, held high. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting," Rob's voice amplified, "but I have evidence the groom has been having an affair." The crowd roared. People stood, phones out, recording. The photo showed Tyler and Kate kissing at Mercantile Restaurant. Timestamp, October 17th, 2:47 p.m. "With my wife," Rob continued, "the bride's mother." Chaos. Kate stood, face flushed. "Rob, stop. You're not well." "Am I?" Rob held up another photo. "Tyler makes $75,000 a year. Where did he get money for Cartier jewelry and luxury hotels?" "This is insane," Tyler's voice cracked. "These photos are authenticated with metadata," Dan said, standing. "But there's more. Tyler's been embezzling from client trust accounts." Vincent Morrison stood slowly among the guests, resignation in his face. "That's slander," Tyler shouted. Dan swiped his phone. The decorative screen behind the arch lit up with text messages large enough for everyone to read. Kate to Tyler. "Can't stop thinking about yesterday. You make me feel alive again." Tyler to Kate. "You are alive. Rob doesn't deserve you." Tyler to Kate. "I love you, Catherine." The messages scrolled. Undeniable. Devastating. "Mom?" Sarah's voice broke. "Is it true?" All eyes turned to Kate, her mask cracked. "It's complicated." "Yes or no?" Sarah screamed. "Did you sleep with my fiancé?" Silence. "Yes." Tyler bolted. Guests blocked his path. "Tyler Hayes." Detective Rachel Brennan stepped forward with two officers. "You're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and theft from client trust accounts." Handcuffs clicked. Tyler in his tuxedo, hands bound, face twisted with rage. Sarah collapsed. Dan caught her. The perfect wedding became a crime scene. Rob stood in the center of chaos, vindicated but heartbroken. He'd saved his daughter. But at what cost? 2 weeks of legal chaos followed. Tyler denied bail, flight risk. Investigation revealed $287,000 stolen from 12 estates over 18 months. Elderly victims, deceased victims, all vulnerable, disbarred immediately, facing 6 to 10 years federal prison. Kate moved to Phoenix within a week. Divorce proceedings were swift and cold. Lawyers communicated. Rob and Kate did not. The Highlands Ranch house sold quickly. Rob couldn't live surrounded by lies. Sarah stayed with Dan, unable to face either parent. She took leave from work, spent days in therapy with Dr. Helen Carter, processing the double betrayal. 3 weeks later, Sarah called. "Can we meet?" They sat in a coffee shop near Dan's apartment, coffees untouched. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you," Sarah said. "You were trying to protect me and I called you crazy." "You wanted to believe in love," Rob said gently. "That's not wrong. I should have trusted you. You've never lied to me." Tears filled her eyes. "Unlike Mom. Unlike Tyler. Their choices weren't your fault." Dr. Carter says I need time to heal, to learn to trust again. Sarah looked down. She says I might struggle with relationships for a while. Then we'll work through it together, Rob said. I'm not going anywhere. Sarah took his hand. Thank you, Dad, for saving me, even when it cost everything. You're my daughter, Rob said simply. You'll always be worth it. The Littleton townhouse was smaller but honest. No secrets, no lies. Sunday morning, Dan flipped pancakes while Rob scrambled eggs. Mitchell & Mitchell Financial Services was thriving, helping others detect fraud, avoid what they'd experienced. The doorbell rang at 9:30. Rob opened the door to find Sarah looking radiant. Beside her stood a tall man with kind eyes. Dad, Dan, this is James Brooks. Jamie, this is my father Rob and my brother Dan. Jamie's handshake was firm but not aggressive. Mr. Mitchell, Sarah talks about you constantly. She told me about the wedding, how you saved her. That takes real courage. They settled around the table with pancakes and easy conversation. Jamie was a high school history teacher, volunteered at an animal shelter, had been patient with Sarah's healing process. He made her laugh, made her feel safe. Most importantly, he was honest. So, Jamie, Dan grinned, what are your intentions with our sister? Jamie didn't hesitate. To love her, support her dreams, and never lie to her. Ever. Rob felt worry loosen in his chest. That's all we ask. After breakfast, Sarah pulled Rob onto the small porch. Dad, I know this year's been hell, she said quietly. Worst year of my life. But maybe the most honest. We lost the fake family, but found the real one. She pointed inside where Dan and Jamie laughed together. Dan's your son because he chose you. Jamie's here because I choose him. Biology doesn't make family. Love does. Honesty does. Rob's eyes stung. You're wise beyond your years. I learned from the best. She squeezed his hand. You taught me truth matters more than comfort. That integrity isn't just words. It's action, even when it's hard. Even when it costs everything. Especially then. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I'd go through it all again for this real, honest family. Me too, sweetheart, Dan called from inside. More pancakes, anyone? They went back in together, into warmth and laughter, into the life they'd built on truth instead of lies. Outside, the Colorado morning stretched bright and clear, no secrets, no deceptions. Just a father, his son, his daughter, and the man who might someday be family, if he proved himself worthy. The worthy ones always did. The ones built on honesty lasted. The ones built on lies inevitably crumbled. Rob had learned that lesson the hard way, but he'd learned it. And that was worth more than 26 years of beautiful lies could ever be.